Yeah, I had a bunch of route changes I meant to make last week, and I didn't get around to them. Who resets? Yeah, I wasn't sure if the splits were doing what I needed them to do. I want them to generate the next splits file automatically, and I wasn't certain that was running, so I had to go check. Didn't stream last week? No, it was because when I finished my stream, I was really tired, and so I didn't do the thing I meant to do.
But never finding the builder of this house.
I am standing on the threshold about to enter a room. It is a complicated business. In the first place,
okay, let's do this the right way.
An atmosphere pressing with a force of
look at how much faster that is.
Square inch of my body. I must make sure of landing on a plank, traveling at 20 miles a second around the sun. A fraction of a second too early or too late, the plank would be miles away. I must do this whilst hanging from a round planet head outward into space and with a wind of ether blowing at no one knows how many miles a second through every interstice of my body. The plank has no solidity of substance. To step on it is like stepping on a swarm of flies. Shall I not slip through? No. If I make the venture, one of the flies hits me and gives me a boost up again. I fall again and am knocked upwards by another fly, and so on. I may hope that the net result will be that I remain about steady. But if, unfortunately, I should slip through the
depends how much water you want to boil.
Violently up to the ceiling, the occurrence would be not a violation of the laws of nature, but a rare coincidence. These are some of the minor difficulties. I ought really to look at the problem four-dimensionally as concerning the intersection of my world line with that of the plank. Then again,
that's not a quantity.
It is necessary to determine in which direction the entropy of the world
but
is
yes,
increasing.
Usually when I boil it,
to make
a
sure
few
that
cups
my
of water, it
passage
does take a while.
Is an entrance, not an exit. Verily, it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a scientific man to pass through a door. And whether the door be barn door or church door, it might be wiser that he should consent to be an ordinary man and walk in, rather than wait till all the difficulties involved in a really scientific ingress are resolved. Arthur Eddington, 1927.
Well, Toby should learn his
of
lesson.
All the communities available to us, there's not one I would want to devote myself to.
Yes.
Except for the Society
make a
of
vacuum.
True Searchers.
Those are easy.
Which
You've got one of those.
has very few living members at any time. Albert Einstein, 1924.
I could do one more.
The physicist Wolfgang Pauli once spoke of two limiting conceptions, both of which have been extraordinarily fruitful in the history of human thought, although no genuine reality corresponds to them. At one extreme is the idea of an objective world, pursuing its regular course in space and time independently of any kind of observing subject. This has been the guiding image of modern science. At the other extreme is the idea of a subject, mystically experiencing the unity of the world and no longer confronted by an object or by any objective world. This has been the guiding image of Asian mysticism. Our thinking moves somewhere in the middle, between these two limiting conceptions. We should maintain the tension resulting from these two opposites.
A little bit tight.
Werner Heisenberg, 1974.
It is a great adventure to contemplate the universe beyond man. To contemplate what it would be like without man, as it was in a great part of its long history and as it is.
Is there any way you can teach him the lesson that isn't extremely painful?
When this objective view is finally attained, and the mystery and majesty of matter are fully appreciated, to then turn the objective eye back on man, viewed as matter, to view life as part of this universal mystery of the greatest depth, is to sense and experience
in the tub. Okay, so maybe not.
And very exciting. It usually ends in laughter and a delight in the futility of trying to understand what this atom in the universe is. This thing, atoms with curiosity, that looks at itself and wonders why it wonders. Well, these scientific views end in awe and mystery, lost at the edge in uncertainty, but they appear to be so deep and so impressive that the theory that it is all arranged as a stage for God to watch man struggle for good and evil seems inadequate. Some will tell me that I have just described a religious experience. Very well.
This is not where I did this.
Then, in that language, I would say
this is
that
extremely
the young
not where I
man's
did this.
religious experience is of such a kind that he finds the religion of his church inadequate to describe, to encompass that kind of experience. The God of the church isn't big enough. Richard Feynman, 1963.
Oh, my God. How does it happen in this poor old world? That thou art so great, and yet nobody finds thee. That thou callest so loudly, and nobody hears thee. That thou art so near, and nobody feels thee.
I think I have
that thou givest thyself
only the picture in my head that isn't Spirited Away of what an abandoned theme park looks like. And that is not very accurate.
From thee, and say they cannot find thee. They turn their backs and say they cannot see thee. They stop their ears and say they cannot hear thee. Hansdank, circa 1520. Imagine if all the tumult of the body were to quiet down, along with all our busy thoughts about earth, sea, and air.
There was a subreddit I followed for a little while that had pictures of abandoned buildings,
and the mind cease
but they got very samey.
Go beyond itself and be quite still. If all the fantasies that appear in dreams and imagination should cease, and there be no speech, no sign. Imagine if all things that are perishable grew still. For if we listen, they are saying, we did not make ourselves. He made us who abides forever. Imagine then that they should say this and fall silent, listening to the very voice of him who made them, and not to that of his creation, so that we should hear not his word through the tongues of men, nor the voice of angels, nor the clouds' thunder, nor any symbol, but his very self, which in these things we love, and go beyond ourselves to attain a flash of that eternal wisdom which abides above all things. And imagine if that moment were to go on and on, leaving behind all other sights and sounds but this one vision, which ravishes and absorbs and fixes the beholder in joy, so that the rest of eternal life were like that moment of illumination.
Every time you solve a panel for the first time,
would
you
this not
snap
be
out
what
of
is
salt
written
mode.
in Scripture? Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. Augustine of Hippo, circa 400.
And then once you
The question is the most difficult
solve it
in the world.
again,
It is not a question I can answer simply with
you
yes
stay
or no.
snapped in. So
not
the
an
first
atheist.
solve we
I do not know
choose
if I can
somewhat
define myself
arbitrarily
as a
because we
pantheist.
want the second solve to be the one
problem
that
involved is
starts
too vast
with your
for our
cursor in the
limited
middle.
minds.
I think.
May I
Or
not
no, I guess
reply with-
either the first or second solves can have your cursor in
human
the middle.
mind,
It doesn't really matter.
No matter how highly
The important thing is that one of those
cannot
two
grasp
solves
the universe.
should be the one where your cursor's in the middle,
we
where
are
the
in the
start point's in the
position
middle.
of a little child entering
Since that's when you're going
a
to start it.
huge library filled with books in many
And then the
languages.
second and third
The child
solves,
knows
you
someone
want the
must
one
have
that
written
goes
those
from the
books.
end point to the start
Does
point
not
most precisely, or most
does
directly,
not understand the languages in which they are written.
because
The child dimly suspects
your
a mysterious
cursor's going to
order
stay
in
in
the
solve mode.
arrangement of
Your
the
character's
books,
going to stay in solve mode.
doesn't know what that is. That, it seems to me, is the attitude of the most
was not a great
intelligent
explanation.
human toward God.
Because
Albert
a good
Einstein,
explanation requires me to show you.
1930.
The concept of a clock enfolds all succession in time. In the concept, the 6th hour is not earlier than the 7th or 8th, although the clock never strikes the hour, save when the concept biddeth. Nicholas of Cusa, 1450.
It's one of the things I need to explain
concept of a
in the
clock
tutorial, though,
enfolds
because a lot of
all
people get it
succession in
wrong a lot
time.
of the time,
In the
because it's not
concept,
obvious.
the 6th hour is not earlier than the 7th or 8th, although the clock never strikes the hour, save when the concept biddeth. Nicholas of Cusa, 1450.
That's mine.
Yeah. Well, I have some ideas about it, and I just wanted to give it a try. See how it goes?
Next thing I know, you'll be taking over all the Cusa pieces. What kind of idea?
I don't know. Subconscious drives, right? Like, with anything creative.
Did you feel this way before you got to the island? Or after?
Both of those right next to each other. That's great. That's the whole
Well,
point. I wish there were a couple more audio logs that are like that, and I wish I could do that.
After.
This is one of the few that I can easily do that
Mostly after. I had a seed of it before, even back when I first heard the piece, when you first picked it up. But I didn't really notice then.
There were only so many audio logs that actually refer to each other. I get UTM in a pretty specific order
I don't mean to be stepping on your
to try
toes,
and tell a
though.
story.
The drive is personal. I wanted to record
There are a
this
bunch of
once.
orders you can do the
I
UTM
can
audio
hear it the
logs in,
way I want to
but
hear
the one
it,
I'm doing makes sense
just to
for the most
set
part.
something right for myself.
Okay. I'm going to file this under the category of good problems to have. Your attitude to the piece changed or clarified maybe based on the trip. That means it's working. Something's working, right? Maybe. Back when we started, I would have counted us lucky to ever get
Yeah,
this
I'm
far.
But here we are.
Record away. I will take my leave. Thanking you for this opportunity to introspect on my aversive feelings.
You're welcome.
We join spokes together in a wheel, but it is the center whole that makes the wagon move. We shape clay into a pot, but it is the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want. We hammer wood for a house, but it is the inner space that makes it livable. We work with being, but non-being is what we use. Lao Tzu, 6th century BC. There is nothing in existence but veils hung down. Acts of perception attach themselves only to veils, which leave traces in the owner of the eye that perceives them.
Oh, oops.
Bin Arabi 1231.
Forgot to get the EP.
The glass is transparent, the wine transparent.
Walked the wrong way.
The two are similar, the affair confused. There seems to be wine and no glass, or glass and no wine. Sahib bin Abad, circa 990.
If we were not able, did not desire to look in any new direction, if we did not have a doubt or recognize ignorance, we would not get any new ideas. There would be nothing worth checking because we would know what is true. So what we call scientific knowledge today is a body of statements of varying degrees of certainty. Some of them are most unsure, some of them are nearly sure, but none is absolutely certain. Scientists are used to this. We know that it is consistent to be able to live and not know. Some people say, how can you live without knowing? I do not know what they mean. I always live without knowing.
Spot.
That is easy.
Fortunately, I have some time to fix
How
it
you
right
get
here.
to know is what I want to know. This freedom to doubt is an important matter in the sciences, and I believe in other fields. It was born of a struggle. It was a struggle to be permitted to doubt, to be unsure. And I do not want us to forget the importance of the struggle, and by default, to let the thing fall away. I feel a responsibility as a scientist
Why am I a minute and a half
who knows
ahead?
the great
Oh yeah, 'cause I
value of
walked
the
the wrong way.
satisfactory
I remember.
philosophy of ignorance.
Right, that
And
was
the
why I wanted
progress
to
made
try adding
possible by such
the
a
audio
philosophy.
log so the cloud cycle wouldn't
Progress
be
which
quite
is
as
the
terrible.
fruit of freedom of thought. I feel a responsibility to proclaim the value of this freedom.
Quad
and to
cycle
teach
might
that
just
doubt
continue
is
to be a bit
not
terrible.
To be feared,
Are we okay?
but that it is to be welcomed as the possibility of a new potential for human beings. If you know that you are not sure, you have a chance to improve the situation. I want to demand this freedom for future generations. Richard Feynman, 1963.
As scientists, we realize that color is merely a question of the wavelengths
for the
of
hell of
ethereal
it.
vibrations.
They're
But
great.
that does not seem to have dispelled the feeling that eyes which
the challenge for me in this category is to see if I can get 3 obelisks, which I have not been succeeding at, and I'm not going to try super hard for.
We have not yet reached the practice of the Laputans who, if they would, for example, praise the beauty of a woman or any other animal, they describe it by rhombs, circles, parallelograms, ellipses, and other geometrical terms. The materialist who is convinced that all phenomena arise from electrons and quanta and the like, controlled by mathematical formulae, must presumably hold the belief that his wife is a rather elaborate differential equation. But he is probably tactful enough not to obtrude this opinion in domestic life. If this kind of scientific dissection is felt to be inadequate and irrelevant in ordinary personal relationships, it is surely out of place in the most personal relationship of all, that of the human soul to a divine spirit. Arthur Eddington,
I
1927.
still am running out of time there. I need to test this a little bit more. I can also snipe the audio log a little bit if I need to.
With the subject of
It is a
generation
fun
of waves
category.
by wave.
I'm getting a little
I
bit
took
tired
down
of
the
it,
standard
that's
treatise
all.
on hydrodynamics.
I'm really
And
hoping
under that
one,
heading I
maybe
read,
2 more runs and I'll
if
be
the
done with it.
external forces P prime sub YY, P prime sub XY,
Because there's just
be given
so
multiples
much
of
sitting
E to the
around
IKX plus AT,
in this run.
where K and A are prescribed. The equations in question determine A and C, and thence, by 9, the value of eta. And so on for 2 pages. At the end, it is made clear that a wind of less than half a mile an hour will leave the surface unruffled. At a mile an hour, the surface is covered with minute corrugations due to capillary waves which decay immediately if the disturbing cause ceases. At 2 miles an hour, the gravity waves appear. As the author modestly concludes, our theoretical investigations give considerable insight into the incipient
I went one
stages
tick
of
too
wave
far because
formation.
there was a subtitle in the
On
way.
another occasion, the same subject of
I
generation
counted to
of
3
waves
and
by wind
should
was
have
in my
counted to
mind.
2.
But this time, another book was more appropriate.
So this is an audio log, for example. It talks about their waters blown by changing wits to laughter, which is another audio log on the island. And in theory, I could get these 2 to line up.
Frost,
Because that's the jungle, or the treehouse beach audio log.
he leaves
But, like,
unbroken glory,
it's a pain,
a gathered
and I don't think it
radiance,
helps the
a
route.
width, a shining
And the
peace
route already
under the
needs
night.
so much help.
The magic words bring back the scene. Again, we feel nature drawing close to us, uniting with us, till we are filled with the gladness of the waves dancing in the sunshine, with the awe of the moonlight on the frozen lake. These were not moments when we fell below ourselves. We did not look back on them and say, it was disgraceful for a man with 6 sober senses and a scientific understanding to let himself be deluded in that way. I will take Lamb's hydrodynamics with me next time. It is good that there should be such moments for us. Life would be stunted and narrow if we could feel no significance in the world around us beyond that which can be weighed and measured with the tools of the physicist or described by the metrical symbols of the mathematician. Of course, it was an illusion. We can easily expose the rather clumsy trick that was played on us. Ethereal vibrations of various wavelengths reflect.
This is one of the toughest segments in the run, actually, because you're very on the clock for a very long time, and you're going pretty far.
Along the optic nerves to a brain center. Here, the mind set to work to weave an impression out of the stimuli. The incoming material was somewhat meager, but the mind is a great storehouse of associations that could be used to clothe the skeleton. Having woven an impression, the mind surveyed all that it had made and decided that it was very good. The critical faculty was lulled. We ceased to analyze and were conscious only of the impression as a whole. The warmth of the air, the scent of the grass, the gentle stir of the breeze, combined with the visual scene in one transcendent impression, around us and within us. Associations emerging from their storehouse grew bolder. Perhaps we recalled the phrase, rippling laughter. Waves, ripples, laughter, loudness. The ideas jostled one another. Quite illogically, we were glad. But what then is to be glad about? In a set of ethereal vibrations, no sensible person can explain. A mood of quiet joy suffused the whole impression. Gladness in ourselves was in nature, in the waves, everywhere. That's how it was. It was an illusion. Then why toy with it longer? These airy fancies which the mind, when we do not keep it severely in order, projects into the external world should be of no concern to the earnest seeker after truth. Get back to the solid substance of things, to the material of the water moving on.
I can save a bit of time here.
The force of gravitation, in obedience to the laws of hydrodynamics. The solid substance of things is another illusion. It too is a fancy projected by the mind into the external world. We have chased the solid substance from the continuous liquid to the atom, from the atom to the electron, and there we've lost it. But at least
I need to be way more cognizant of how I do this strat.
Chase the protons and electrons. Or, if the new quantum theory condemns these images as too concrete and leaves us with no coherent images at all, at least we have symbolic.
But like, I should definitely be doing more during this segment because I'm losing time because I'm not doing as much.
To ensuring that QP minus PQ shall be equal to IH over 2 pi. I have tried to show that by following this course we reach a cyclic scheme which, from its very nature, can only be a partial expression of our environment. It is not reality, but the skeleton of reality. Actuality has been lost in the exigencies of the chase. Having first rejected the mind as a worker of illusion, we have, in the end, to return to the mind and say, here are worlds
I'm actually going to summon the boat here.
on a basis more secure than your fanciful illusions. But there is nothing to make any one of them an actual world. Please choose one. And
because I'm going to need the boat later, and having the stairs lowered is actually a bit of a time save.
We have torn away the mental fancies to get to the reality beneath, only to find that the reality of that which is beneath is bound up with its potentiality of awakening these fancies. It is because the mind, the weaver of illusion, is also the only guarantor of reality, that reality is always to be sought at the base of illusion. Illusion is to reality as the smoke to the fire. I will not urge that hoary untruth, there is no smoke without fire, but it is reasonable to inquire whether, in the mystical illusions of man, there is not a reflection of an underlying reality.
Interesting. I am somehow way too slow.
1927.
Here. Like, something went wrong? I guess it was the 2 Sky EPs pushing me over. Interesting.
What is divine in man is elusive and impalpable, and he is easily tempted to embody it in a concrete form.
I can find somewhere else, or I can put them back where they were.
A social system, a leader, so that he may realize it with less effort and serve it with more profit. Yet, the attempt to externalize
that one's been tight. I know, but I thought it was okay last run.
And disaster.
And that was even without saving the time in Quarry.
Constitutions nor established by arms. Those who seek for it alone will reach it together, and those who seek it in company will perish by themselves. Hugh Kingsmill, 1944.
Okay, let me take the time right now to find a lineup for this. It's in the middle of that. That's one option. I can catch myself. I can't catch myself here. So this is the best option I have. Okay, that's fine.
66 times have these eyes beheld the changing scene of autumn. I have said enough about moonlight. Ask no more. Only listen to the voice of pines and cedars when no wind stirs. Leonin, 1711.
Speaking of things that I didn't line up properly and are therefore close.
In the traditional view, a person is free. He is autonomous in the sense that his behavior is uncaused. That view, together with its associated practices, must be re-examined when a scientific analysis reveals unexpected controlling relations between behavior and environment. By questioning the control exercised by autonomous man and demonstrating the control exercised by the environment, a science of behavior also seems to question dignity or worth. A person is responsible for his behavior, not only in the sense that he may be justly blamed or punished when he behaves badly, but also in the sense that he is to be given credit and admired for his achievements. A scientific analysis shifts the credit as well as the blame to the environment, and traditional practices can then no longer be justified. These are sweeping changes, and those who are committed to traditional theories and practices naturally resist them. As the emphasis shifts to the environment, the individual
really wish
seems
these
to be
didn't turn
exposed
bright
to
white so
new
you couldn't
kind of
see
danger.
anything. That
Who
would
is
just
to
make me
construct
happier.
the controlling environment, and to what end? Autonomous man presumably controls himself in accordance with a built-in set of values. He works for what he finds good. But what will the putative controller find good? And will it be good for those he controls? Answers to questions of this sort are said, of course, to call for value judgments. B.F. Skinner, 1971.
Hello? It's right here. Couldn't find the
I boasted
audio.
among men that I had known you. They see your pictures in all works of mine. They come and ask me, who is he? I know not how to answer them. I say, indeed, I cannot tell. They blame me, and they go away in scorn. And you sit there, smiling. I put my tales of you into lasting songs. The secret gushes out from my heart. They come and ask me, tell me all your meanings. I know not how to answer them. I say, who knows what they mean? They smile and go away in utter scorn. And you sit there smiling. Rabindranath Tagore, 1910.
If a man, holding a belief which he was taught in childhood or persuaded of afterwards, keeps down and pushes away any doubts which arise about it in his mind, purposely avoids the reading of books and the company of men that call into question or discuss it, and regards as impious those questions which cannot easily be asked without disturbing it, the life of that man is one long sin against mankind. But, says one,
I'm going to skip the discard, actually.
I have no time for the long course of study which would be necessary to make me in any degree a competent judge of certain questions, or even able to understand the nature of the arguments. Then he should have no time to believe. William K. Clifford, 1874. A ship owner
Which
was
is going to
about
make
to
this a
send
little
to
bit
sea
tighter,
an emigrant
but
ship.
I'm pretty sure it's not a
He
big
knew
deal.
that she was old and not well built at the first, that she had seen many
Because I get a
things
nice
and
slow
times,
couch EP here.
and often had needed repairs. Doubts had been suggested to him that possibly she was not seaworthy. These doubts preyed upon his mind and made him unhappy. He thought that perhaps he ought to have her thoroughly overhauled
I don't know if I saw
and
speed
refitted,
5 there. I thought I did.
even though this should put him at great expense.
Yes,
Before
right. The
the
speed
ship
panel
sailed,
won't snap
however,
me out
He
because I'm
succeeded in
solving
overcoming
boat
these melancholy reflections.
in jungle now.
He said to himself
makes sense.
that she had gone safely through so many voyages and weathered so many storms that it was idle to suppose she would not come safely home from this trip also. He would put his trust in Providence.
I'm used to it
which could
snapping me
hardly
out
fail
because
to
usually
protect
in 100%
all
that's
these
the first time
unhappy
you
families
solve the speed
that were
panel.
leaving their fatherland to
Think.
seek for better times
Might
elsewhere.
not be true, actually.
He would dismiss from his mind all ungenerous suspicions
Oh my
about
God.
the honesty of builders
I was
and
there.
contractors. In such ways,
Alright,
he
whatever.
acquired a sincere and comfortable conviction that his vessel was thoroughly safe and seaworthy.
Yeah, getting 3 is
he
tight.
Watched her departure
getting
with
him
a light
discard
heart
is tight, but I think
and
it's the right
benevolent
play.
wishes for the success of the exiles in their strange new home that was to be. And he got his insurance money when she went down in mid-ocean and told no tales. What shall we say of him? Surely this, that he was verily guilty of the death of those families. It is admitted that he did sincerely believe in the soundness of his ship, but the sincerity of his conviction can in no wise help him, because he had no right to believe on such evidence as was before him. He had acquired his belief not by honestly earning it in patient investigation, but by stifling his doubts. And although in the end he may have felt so sure about it that he could not think otherwise, yet inasmuch as he had knowingly and willingly worked himself into that frame of mind, he must be held responsible for it. William K. Clifford, 1874.
Yeah, like old 100%.
In a sense,
because that's something I want to relive.
Modern physics is to the history of Western thought.
No, some of them you were horrendously early, and then you felt really bad because you lost like a minute.
Of more than 2,000 years of incisive debate.
I honestly liked Walma's route there for a little while. He sent it at speed 1 super early.
Could hardly be more marked.
Because that way
is interested above all in theories,
he was able to speed it up whenever he got there. I think that was honestly what encouraged him to think of that snipe. Was because it looked like there was
not in the Western sense of things that are
looked like there was a way to solve it earlier,
which are in fact abstractions.
That was the wrong walking route.
But as living, immediate, and tangible. Its approach to understanding is not to theorize, because it recognizes that previously accumulated ideas and knowledge, in other words, memories of all kinds, block the direct perception of reality. Therefore, Zen adopts an unusual approach. Its buildup involves language, which is unavoidable. Any method, even if it turns out to be an anti-method, has first to convey some background in order to be effective. But the way Zen uses language is always to point beyond language, beyond concepts to the concrete. David Darling, 1996.
Our hangnails are incredibly real to us. Whereas to most of us, the English village of Netherwallop and the high Himalayan country of Bhutan, not to mention the slowly swirling spiral galaxy in Andromeda, are considerably less real. Even though our intellectual selves might wish to insist that since the latter are much bigger and longer lasting than our hangnails, they ought therefore to be far realer to us than our hangnails are. We can say this to ourselves till we're blue in the face, but few of us act as if we really believed it. A slight slippage of subterranean stone that obliterates 20,000 people in some far-off land.
I'm just not even gonna look.
The ceaseless plundering of virgin jungles in the Amazon basin. A swarm of helpless stars being swallowed up, one after another by a ravenous black hole.
It felt like the right solve.
Even an ongoing collision between two huge galaxies, each of which
the Corey laser panel, you don't get a good response as to whether or not you got it right. Yeah, it looked right, and I got closer to it, so I felt pretty confident.
The sense of urgency and importance,
down,
and thus the reality of some measly little hangnail on my left hand's pinky. We are all egocentric, and what is realist to each of us in the end is ourself. The realest things of all are my knee, my nose, my anger, my hunger, my toothache, my side ache, my sadness, my joy, my love for math, my abstraction ceiling, and so forth. What all these things have in common, what binds them together, is the concept of my, which comes out of the concept of I or me, and therefore, although it is less concrete than a nose or even a toothache, this I thing is what ultimately seems to each of us to constitute the most solid rock of undeniability of all. Could it possibly be an illusion? Or if not a total illusion, could it possibly be less real and less solid than we think it is? Could an eye be more like an elusive, receding, shimmering rainbow than like a tangible, heftable, transportable pot of gold? Douglas Hofstadter, 2007.
I maintain that the cosmic religious feeling is the strongest and noblest motive for scientific research.
That
Only
door,
those who realize the immense
what?
efforts and,
Why?
above all, the devotion without which pioneer work in theoretical science cannot be achieved are able to grasp the strength of the emotion out of which alone such work, remote as it is from the immediate realities of life, can issue. What a deep conviction of the rationality of the universe.
Failing all of the dumb things.
Understand, were it but a feeble reflection of the mind revealed in this world, Kepler and Newton must have had to enable them to spend years of solitary labor disentangling the principles of celestial mechanics. Those whose acquaintance with scientific research is derived chiefly from its practical results easily develop a completely false notion of the mentality of the men who, surrounded by a skeptical world, have shown the way to kindred spirits scattered wide.
Is this a new category? Sure. If
Only
you want it to
one
be.
who has devoted his
All
life
I
to
care is that
simple
it's what I'm
ends
currently
can
running.
have vivid
It doesn't need to have any
realization
fancy
of
category
what has
definitions.
inspired these men and given
Once
them
I get a
the
run that
strength
I'm
to
happy
remain
with, I'll
true to their
probably make a
purpose,
category description.
in spite
Officially,
of
it's not going
countless
on the main
failures.
leaderboard. It's going on Cadex,
It
and
is
the entire
cosmic
rules for
religious
Cadex
feeling
are
that gives a man
write
such
a
strength.
description of the rules and submit, have a video.
Said, not
That's it.
unjustly,
So,
that in this materialistic
I could
age
make
of
this a
ours,
category
the
whenever I wanted.
serious scientific workers
But I don't
are
have
the
a good...
only profoundly
I don't really
religious
care
people.
yet, is the short answer.
Albert Einstein, 1930.
Formerly, you appeared to me, O Lord, as invisible
201.
by every creature because you are a hidden,
201.
infinite God.
2,
Infinity,
1,
however,
2, 1.
is incomprehensible by every means of comprehending.
2, 1, 2.
Later, you appeared to me
Numbers.
as visible by all.
Yes.
For a thing exists only as you see it,
The way I memorize
and
these
it would not
puzzles.
actually exist unless it saw you. For your vision confers being, since your vision is your essence. Thus, my God, you are equally invisible.
I think I do want to do
and
blues,
visible.
actually.
As you are,
I reordered them here,
You
but
are
I think that was
invisible.
wrong.
as the creature is, which exists only insofar as the creature sees you, you are visible. You, therefore, my
Doing a
invisible
speedrun.
God,
Technically, yes.
are seen by all.
But I'm
and
not
in
really
all
racing a
sight you
timer,
are seen
so
by
the speed
everyone
part of
who
it is sort of
sees.
dubious.
You
The category
who
I'm
are
running right now
invisible,
is all audio logs and
who are
panels.
both
The
absolute
requirement
from
is listen
everything
to every
visible
single audio
and
log
infinitely
in
super
completeness
exalted, are
and
seen in
solve every
every
single
visible
panel.
thing and in every act of vision.
So
Therefore, I must leap
it's a
across
little
this
bit
wall of
not
invisible
really
vision
speed bound because of course
to where
at
you
the
are
top
to be
level
found.
you can finish
But
all
this
of
wall
the
is both everything and
all
nothing.
of the panels during all the audio
For
logs.
you,
No, I don't think this is related to
who
Triple E.
confront as if you were both all things and nothing at all.
How do I get that? That's the
Dwell
cursor.
inside that high wall, which
It's
no
in the settings
natural
menu.
ability can scale by its own power. Nicholas of
It's
Cusa,
really nice for speedruns,
1453.
but they apparently added it for
One nature, perfect and pervading,
people's motion
circulates
sickness.
in all natures. One reality,
So it's
all
been in the game for a while.
contains within itself all realities.
The
The one moon
reflects
reflects itself wherever there is
Show you
a
how to
sheet
get it.
of
Sure.
water.
I'm not pausing this run.
All the moons in the waters
But
are
it is in the
embraced
settings
within
menu.
the one moon. The absolute of all the Buddhas enters into my own
Not
being,
where I was going.
and my own being is found in union with theirs.
Oh no,
The
dude!
inner light is beyond praise
I realized
and
it was
blame.
wrong as I input it.
Like space,
Oh, God.
it knows no boundaries.
Send help.
Yet it is even here, within us, ever retaining its serenity and firmness.
That exit.
It is only when you hunt for it that you lose it. You cannot take hold of it.
Didn't light up the laser? I did. It
Equally,
takes
you
a minute
cannot
to
get rid
activate,
of
and I'm
it.
not standing around.
And while you can do
So
neither,
a waste of time.
it goes on, its own way.
That would be this beam right here.
You remain silent, and it speaks. You speak, and it is dumb. The great
think I
gate
got
of charity
Corey,
is
too.
wide open,
Yeah, that's that beam.
with no obstacles before it.
I'm gonna be late.
Young Cha.
Oh, I'm gonna be so late.
Circa 7.
Oh god. Alright. Time loss. So it's not really a speedrun, because in theory I just keep pace with the audio logs, but if I screw stuff up, then I lose time in between the audio logs. I want to be ready at the next audio log.
O
For every
Lord
single
God, helper of those who seek you, I see you in the garden of paradise.
Right, and it doesn't matter
And
because
I do
I've
not
been
know
waiting.
what I see, because I see nothing visible. I know this alone, that I know that I do not know what I see, and that I can never know. I do not know how
why
to
did that
name you
not
because
split?
I do not know what you are.
Are these not multi?
Should
Ooh,
anyone tell me that you are
that's
named by this or
probably
that
wrong.
name, by the fact that one gives a name, I know that it is not your name. For the wall beyond which I see you is the limit of every mode of signification by names. Should anyone express any
All the laser
concept by
panels
which
and the
you
laser,
could be
I
conceived,
couldn't.
I know that
But I
this
can definitely get
concept is
more
not a
up there. I
concept
was
of
thinking
you.
of getting yellows.
For every concept
I've tried to get
finds its
all of it, it
boundary
doesn't
at the
work.
wall
But I
of
could definitely get
paradise.
more than just the blues.
Should anyone express any likeness,
Especially since
and
I
say
dropped
that
the
you
2
ought to be
EPs there.
conceived
Like, that's
according
definitely
to it,
part of the plan
I know
there.
in the same way that this is not a likeness of you.
I don't know how much is the right amount.
So too, if
yeah.
anyone, wishing to furnish the means by which you might be understood, should set forth an understanding of you, one is still far removed from you. For the highest wall separates you from all
I mean, there's a lot of
these,
spoilers in
and
this one.
secludes you from
But
everything
yeah,
that
especially,
can be said
we're going
or
to do the
thought,
post-game stuff here.
because you are absolute from all the things that can fall within any concept.
And yeah, if you pay too much attention to the
Nicholas of
mechanics,
Cusa,
you might learn something.
1453.
Which would be a shame.
Suppose a boat is
But I'm assuming
crossing
those
a
people who are
river
watching a speedrun
and another
have
empty
played
boat
the game.
is about to collide with
I
it.
hope.
Even an irritable man would not lose his temper. But supposing there was someone in the second boat, then the occupant of the first would shout to him to keep clear, and if the other did not hear the first time, nor even when called 3 times,
Imagine
bad language
coming into the
would
channel
inevitably
of someone who
follow.
wrote a puzzle generator
first
and
case,
posting a link
there was
to a
no
different
anger.
puzzle system.
In the second, there was. Because in the first case, the boat was empty, and in the second, it was occupied. And so it is with man. If he
Some
could
people
only
like
roam
to
empty
learn
through
is
life,
whether or not they like the game
who
by
would
watching
be
the
able
speedrun.
to injure him? Shuangzi, 4th century BC. We have 2 kinds of knowledge which I call symbolic and intimate.
You were actively playing the
I do
game
not
when you
know
watched the
whether it
run,
would
I
be
think.
correct to say
Or
that
did we
these
convince you
elements,
from watching the
only
speedruns?
applicable to symbolic knowledge, but the more customary forms of
I know.
reasoning
Imagine
have been
standing
developed for
still in a
symbolic
speedrun.
knowledge.
What a terrible run.
The intimate knowledge.
So I think
will
one of the
not
reasons this run
submit
is a
to
bit tiring is
codification
because it's
and
very, very
analysis.
slow in a lot of ways.
Rather, when we attempt to analyze it, the intimacy is lost and replaced by symbolism. For an illustration, let us consider humor. I suppose that humor can be analyzed to some extent and the essential ingredients of the different kinds of wit classified.
Okay.
Suppose that we are offered an alleged joke. We subject it to scientific analysis as we would a chemical
Oh, I have that
salt of
voice. Those are the
doubtful
audio
nature.
logs.
And
That's
perhaps
the
after
that's this
careful
category. You
consideration,
click on the little
we
boxes
are
and
able
it starts
to
playing
confirm
audio
that it
logs.
really and truly is a joke.
I know not all of them are obvious because
Logically,
they're pretty far away,
suppose
but that's what
Our
I'm
next
doing.
procedure would be to laugh.
Yeah.
But it may certainly be predicted that as the result of the scrutiny, we shall have lost
Most of the ones in
all
Triage you're not going to see.
inclination we
Kind of an
ever
Easter egg?
had
Not
to
really.
laugh at it.
They're a
It
very
simply
intentional
does not
mechanic.
do to expose the workings of a joke. The classification concerns a symbolic knowledge of humor, which preserves all the characteristics of a joke except its laughableness. The real appreciation must come spontaneously, not introspectively. I think this is a not unfair analogy for our mystical feeling for nature. And I would
doing
venture
12.
even to apply it to our mystical experience of God. There are some to whom the sense of the divine presence irradiating the soul is one of the most obvious things of experience. In their view, a man without this sense is to be regarded as we regard a man without a sense of humor. The absence is a kind of mental deficiency. We may try to analyze the experiences we analyze humor and
out in the open,
construct
they're
a
just
theology, or it may be an atheistic
they're pretty heavily
philosophy.
hinted. You see them
Let us not forget that the theology is
when
symbolic
you
knowledge,
finish the game,
whereas the experience
because
is
the
intimate knowledge.
flyover goes directly
And
next
his
to the bell
laughter
tower
cannot
log.
be compelled by the scientific
But they're also like there are a number of them that
exposition
are
of the
pretty easy to
structure of a
see.
joke. So a philosophic discussion of the attributes of God, or an impersonal substitute, is likely to miss the intimate
I think the game
response
hints at
of
them
the
just as much as
spirit,
it does
which is the
EPs.
central point of the religious experience. Arthur Eddington, 1927. Lustily, I dipped my oars into the silent lake.
Well, yeah.
And as I rose upon the stroke,
Most people don't actually figure it out from the mountaintop
heaving
panel.
through the water
I think making that transparent would have been very reasonable,
When,
but John apparently
from
didn't.
behind that craggy steep, till then the horizon's found. A huge peak, black and huge,
Okay,
as
so
if
that's the
with
turnaround.
voluntary power instinct, upreared its head. I
I'm like
struck
10 seconds
and
slow
struck
here.
again. And growing still in stature, the grim shape towered up between me and the stars. But after I had seen that spectacle,
So I have no idea if
for
this
many days
timing
my
actually
brain
lines
worked
up.
with a dim and undetermined sense of unknown modes of being.
And even so, this is pretty fast, and I'm
Or my
still going to be
thoughts.
losing a bunch of time.
There hung a darkness. Call it solitude. Or blank
Because
desertion.
like this audio log is far away.
William Wordsworth.
1888. Time loss.
God bade me behold the sea, and I saw the ship
bummer.
sinking and the planks floating.
Like that
Then
turnaround
the
is a
planks
huge
too
time loss.
were submerged.
It's like 10 seconds or something.
And God said to me, "Those who voyage
I don't know what to do about
are
it.
not saved."
Oh well.
And he said to me, "Those who, instead of voyaging, cast themselves into the sea, take a
What the
risk.
hell am I doing? Okay, well,
And he
whatever.
said
We're
to
here
me,
now.
Those who voyage and take no risk shall perish." And he said to me, "In taking the risk, there is a part of salvation." And the wave came and lifted those beneath it and overran the shore. And he said to me,
That way.
"The surface of the sea is a gleam that cannot be reached, and the bottom is a darkness impenetrable. And between the two are great fishes, which are to be feared." Nefari, circa 970.
What?
When we choose silence, we choose to give up the reasons not to love.
Oh,
which
I
are the
still have to
reasons
do
for going
this.
to
Okay.
war, or continuing war, or separating, or being a victim, or being
Question
right.
it.
In a moment of silence,
I'm supposed
in
to
a
solve
moment
that earlier
of no
too.
thought, no mind, we choose to give those up. This is what my teacher invited me to. Just choose
What?
silence.
Wait, what?
Don't even choose
No!
love. Choose silence. And
No!
love is apparent.
It's wrong! It
Choose
lies!
love. We already have an idea of what love is.
Oh, wait, no, it's not mine.
But if you choose silence, that is the end of ideas.
Alright, well, who's ready
You are
for some more
willing
time
to
loss?
have no idea.
Because I am.
To see what is present when there is no idea. Past, present, future. No idea of love.
Okay,
No
like,
idea
choose
of
silence.
truth.
I refuse to
No
choose
idea of
silence.
you.
Feynman
no
or
idea
Skinner?
of me.
Some of the other audio logs are pretty interesting,
Love
even if they
is
are a bit
apparent.
religious.
Gangaji, 2000.
I really enjoy a lot of Gangaji's vlogs. I really liked the Nefari ones as well. And there's a James Joyce, who we don't hear outside of the mountain, but who also
These
has some
hearts
very good
were woven of
audio
human
logs.
joys and cares.
God, that still
Washed
gets me every
marvelously
time.
with sorrow, swift to mirth. Years had given them kindness. Dawn was theirs, and sunset, and the colors of the earth. These had seen movement and heard music, known slumber and waking.
Yeah, Kusa is also a very interesting
gone proudly friended.
speaker. Like,
Felt the
that's the
quick
thing. Like,
stir
even the
of
ones that are
wonder.
very religious are,
Sat alone,
even as someone who's not religious,
touched
very
flowers
interesting.
and
That's the point.
furs and
Right? These are
cheeks.
supposed to be topics that
All
can be
this
interesting to an
is
atheist.
ended.
So you can contemplate
There are waters
concepts
blown by
in a
changing
safe
winds
space
to laughter, and lit by the rich skies
without
all day.
feeling uncomfortable
And
or like
after,
your views aren't represented.
Frost, with the gesture, stays the waves that dance. He leaves a white,
Did I
unbroken
count
glory,
tutorial wrong? Apparently.
a gathered radiance, a width, a shining peace under the night. Rupert Brooke, 1914. Then the occupant of the first would shout to keep
So like
him
this is
clear.
another one that I could try
If the
and
other
get
did
lined
not
up with
hear
the
it
boat
first
log, but the
time,
boat log is
or
so
even
far
when
out of the way.
called
Where am I
3
going? Yes,
times,
this way.
Bad
So that it's
language
just not
would
worth it.
inevitably follow. In the first case, there was no anger. In the second, there was. Because in the first case, the boat was empty. And in the second, it was occupied. And so it is with man. He can only run
Audio log.
empty
Choose
handed.
silence during one of the most
would
technical
be
parts of the run.
Soon, 4th century BC.
How'd it go?
I don't know.
Solve
I don't
the
remember.
thing.
No,
Solve the
it's-
thing.
It's not. It's normal for me. I never remember
solve
my
the thing.
dreams. If I try right when I wake up, I can just barely remember fragments. And later in the day, even 20 minutes later, those fragments are gone. Unless I wrote them down. And if I read them later, it's like these are
The ramblings
ramblings
of
of
a
a
crazy
crazy
person.
person.
Yeah, but then how do we know there aren't any side effects? I mean, do you remember everything else about your life?
It's fine.
Solving a lot.
We're just doing suppression, not
It's too sharp.
lobotomies. I
Can't
mean, everything
see
is
it.
still there. In dreams, we often take on personalities that are a little different. We forget
So I decided I
details
did
of
not
our
need to
waking
take this
life
risk,
and
and I had
remember
time
fictions in
with
their
the
place.
swap of tutorial.
How does that happen? Well, we're just using the same pathways.
But I think that's a swap I can do in actual
Really?
100%. I'm
How
picturing
should
that
I
I'm
know
probably going to run actual
if
100% after
something's
this.
missing?
Because I think that'll be
If
more
you
enjoyable than
forget a
running
few
all
random
lasers.
little
And those are the other
things,
two
how
main
would you
categories I'm interested in.
remember that you forgot? How big is missing?
Sharp solving sounds mean. Yeah, that's fair. I pushed it up against a knight and then I solved it.
Why did we let you go first?
First hasn't happened yet. I was just dipping my toes into the pool. Real first happens when someone dives right in.
What, you don't want to take a
Gets
knife to the
decide for
polyominoes?
themselves.
Glass factory and symmetry. Well, there's only one category that runs those two, but they are important.
I long for the days when we weren't sure we'd be doing anything this scary.
It'll be fine. It's not scary. It'll be fun.
So fun you don't even remember?
Glass factory is a bit long,
Okay, no.
so as a result,
I want to re-record this one.
it doesn't actually get into any of the routes that don't
I have some
explicitly
new
add
ones
it,
about
like 100% or all lasers or whatever.
Test?
But it is a
Yes.
fun area.
Because of the test. Possibly.
I thought you didn't remember anything. Interesting.
Yeah. Have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow.
End of log. Oops.
A poet once said, "The whole universe is in a glass of wine." We will probably
Hello,
never know
Feynman.
what's inside. Poets do not write to be understood. But
Talking about
it is
dumb
true that if
stuff.
we look at a glass of wine closely enough,
Can I summon boat
we
here?
see the entire universe. There are the things of physics, the twisting
Actually, I
liquid
think I
which
can.
evaporates depending on the wind and weather, the reflections
no
in
one
the
else
glass,
uses it.
and our imagination adds the atoms. The glass is a distillation of the Earth's rocks.
The other thing I would love to do
and in
here
its
is to solve
composition, we
more
see
of
the
tutorial.
secrets of the universe's
I
age
don't
and the
think I have
evolution
that
of
much free
stars.
time here, is the only reason I'm
What
hesitant to do that.
strange array of chemicals are in the wine? How did they come to be? There are the ferments, the enzymes, the substrates, and the products. There in wine is
But
found
I have
the
the,
great
like I'm in the right
generalization.
place, like I could see them here if I had to.
All life is fermentation. Nobody can discover the chemistry of wine without discovering, as did Louis Pasteur, the cause of much disease. How vivid is the claret, pressing its existence into the consciousness that watches it.
So I'm definitely not going to get Cloud Cycle
for some convenience.
Well, I lost time
glass of wine,
so I might be on time for Cloud Cycle.
Physics,
but I'm not supposed
biology,
to be.
geology, astronomy, psychology, and so on.
Remember to be missing a little bit.
Know it. So, let us put it all back together, not forgetting ultimately what it is for. Let it give us one more final pleasure. Drink it. Forget it all. Richard Feynman, 1963.
The most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious.
Right. Spoilers territory if
it
you've
is
not
the
finished the game.
fundamental emotion that stands at the cradle of
entering
true
the
art
mountain.
and true science.
But I really hope
Whoever
if you're
does not
watching this
know
that you
it
finish the game.
and can no
or
longer
that you don't
wonder,
care about getting spoiled.
no longer marvel, is as good as dead and his eyes are dimmed. It was the experience of mystery, even if mixed with fear, that engendered religion.
Yeah, I definitely don't have that much.
A knowledge of the existence of something we cannot penetrate.
At the end of Swamp there.
Our perceptions of the profoundest reason and the most radiant beauty, which only in their most primitive forms are accessible to our minds.
I think it would be tricky.
It is this knowledge and this emotion that constitute true religiosity. In this sense, and in this alone, I am a deeply religious man. I cannot conceive of a God who rewards and punishes his creatures, or as a will of the kind that we experience in ourselves. Neither can I, nor would I, want to conceive of an individual that survives his physical death. Let feeble souls, from fear or absurd egoism, cherish such thoughts. I am satisfied with the mystery of the eternity of life,
Get the
and with the awareness and a glimpse of the marvelous structure of the existing world.
And if you
together,
download that, this is the standard speedrunning program.
To comprehend a portion,
it is Windows
be it
only,
ever
so if you're playing
tiny,
on Mac, you will have to find
the reason that manifests itself in
but if you go to speedrun.com, you should be able to find it. You can also just search
Albert Einstein, 1931.
I made a mistake. Let's do that.
Therefore, I thank you, my God, because you make clear to me that there is no other way of approaching you, except that which to all humans, even to the most learned philosophers, seems wholly inaccessible and impossible.
LiveSplit is definitely a program you're going to want if you do speedruns. It's a pretty strong timer. There's 5 or 6, I think. Einstein is a very good spirituality person, right? Someone who talks about God without talking about a particular God.
And I have discovered that the place where you are found
and he does get mentioned because he's pretty well known.
Coincidence of contradictories. This is the wall of paradise, and it is there in paradise that you reside.
That was very close to not working because it went up left.
By the highest spirit of reason, and unless it is overpowered, the way in will not lie open. Thus, it is on the other side of the coincidence of contradictories that you will be able to be seen from nowhere on this side. If, therefore, impossibility is necessity in your sight, O Lord, there is nothing which
saving time does not matter because I am bound to the audio log.
Nicholas of Cusa, 1453.
2 major schools of Zen exist in Japan, the Rinzai and the Soto. Both have the same goal, seeing the
my
world
time is bound to the
unmediated,
audio log duration.
but their approaches are different. In the Soto school, the emphasis is on quiet contemplation in a seated position without a particular focus for thought. The method in the Rinzai school, however, is to put the intellect to work on problems that have no logical resolution. Such problems are known as koans, from the Chinese keng'e, meaning public announcement. Some are mere questions. For example, when your mind is not dwelling on the dualism of good and evil, what is your original face before you were born? Others are set in a question and answer form, like, what is the Buddha?
I really don't have to take this very seriously.
3 pounds of flax,
There's so much free time.
A cypress tree in the courtyard, to name but 2 of the classic responses. According to tradition, there are 1,700 such conundrums in the Zen repertoire.
Why is that according to
and their
tradition?
common aim is
Why
to
is it
induce
traditional
a
that
kind
there are
of
1,700?
intellectual catastrophe.
Bungee cord.
a sudden jump, which lifts the individual out of the domain of words and reason into a direct,
not sure why you picked bungee
non-mediated experience known as Satori. Zen differs from other meditative forms, including other schools of Buddhism, in that it does not start from where we are and gradually lead us to a clear view of the true way of the world. It is not a progressive system in this respect. The sole purpose of studying Zen is to have Zen experiences, sudden moments, like flashes of lightning, when the intellect is
that's not true.
short-circuited.
It's not about position, it's about duration. Right? You can go to any other audio log.
And reality. David Darling, 1996.
You see, a motif is this. He put his hands together, drew them apart, the 10 fingers open, then slowly, very slowly, brought them together again, clasped them, squeezed them tightly, meshing them.
Alright, we've got about 20 minutes left,
That's what one should try
which is
to
good. That
achieve.
means I'll have about half an hour
If
afterwards
one
to do
hand
some
is set to
timing
bind
and some
together,
splits
it
editing.
won't work. Not a
I'm
single
hoping that the
link
set of splits I get
should
out
be
of
too
this
small,
run will be the
leaving
final
a
set,
hole through
and I'll
which
just
the
be able to
emotion,
edit them
light,
to the end.
truth can escape.
I'm also hoping I'm nearly done,
You
but
must
we'll see
understand
how true that is.
I work on the whole canvas, on everything at once. With one impulse, with undivided faith, I approach all the scattered bits and pieces. Everything we see falls apart, vanishes, doesn't it? Nature is always the same, but nothing in her that appears to us lasts. Our art must render the permanence along with her elements. The appearance of all her changes. It must give us a taste of her eternity. What is there underneath? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Everything.
Okay,
You
left.
understand? So I bring together
That was
her
the wrong way to
wandering
turn.
hands. I take something at right,
Right.
left, here, there, everywhere.
Right.
Her tones, her colors, her nuances. I set them down. I bring them together. They form lines. They become objects, rocks, trees, without my planning. They take on volume, value. If these volumes, these values, correspond on my canvas, in my sensibility, to the planes, to the spots which are there before our eyes, my canvas has brought its hands together. It does not waver. The hands have been joined neither too high nor too low. My canvas is true, compact, full. But if there is the slightest distraction, if I fail just a little bit, above all, if I interpret too much one day, if today I am carried away by a theory which runs counter to that of yesterday, if I think while I paint, if I meddle, whoosh, everything goes to pieces. Paul Cézanne, as related by Joaquin Gasquet, 1921.
Look up, I did. I already got that.
Looked at on the astronomical time
We can go to the other one now.
humanity is at the very beginning of its existence. A newborn babe, with all the unexplored potentialities of babyhood. And until the last few moments, its interest has been centered absolutely.
This is James
and
Jeans,
exclusively
another
on its
scientific
cradle and
speaker.
feeding.
Or
It has
materialist
just
atheist,
become
I think how they
conscious of the
classify it.
vast world existing
It's a
outside
very
itself
interesting
and its
piece, actually.
It is learning to focus its eyes on distant objects.
About humanity as a
and its
metaphor for
awakening
life, or I
minds
guess life is a metaphor for humanity. The idea that sort of what we are doing as a society is
What purpose
still
is
to some extent the same as
its
what
interest in this
what a life
is
would
not
do.
much developed yet.
Which
So
I
that
understand some of the
main
parallels,
part of
but
its
it feels like it's a bit of a forced metaphor in some ways.
But a little corner of its brain is beginning to wonder. James Jeans, 1928. The relation between the controller and the controlled is reciprocal.
Saving more
The
time,
scientist in the
because I
laboratory
forgot and
studying
did
the behavior of
some
the
of
pigeon,
the
designs contingencies and observes
the
His
bridges
apparatus
on the
exerts a
audio log last time.
conspicuous control on the pigeon, but we must not overlook the control exerted by the pigeon. The behavior of the pigeon has determined the design of the apparatus and the procedures in which it is used. Some such reciprocal control is characteristic of all science.
Too fast, especially when it
Bacon.
doesn't matter.
Nature,
There's no
to
way
be
for me to
commended,
lose time here,
must
or
be
gain time
obeyed.
here. plenty of ways for me to
The
lose.
scientist who designs a cyclotron.
Would the parent of humanity be God in this metaphor? No. Because this metaphor is specifically talking about humanity in an atheistic form. Yes, this is very much the do everything at all, and you'll be fine.
A psychotherapist changes the behavior of his patient in ways which have been shaped and maintained by his success in changing that behavior. A government or religion prescribes and imposes sanctions selected by their effectiveness in controlling citizen or conduct. An employer induces his employees to work industriously and carefully with wage systems determined by their effects on behavior. The classroom practices of the teacher are shaped and maintained by the effects on his students. In a very real sense, then, the slave controls the slave driver, the child, the parent, the patient, the therapist, the citizen, the government, the communicant, the priest, the employee, the employer, and the student, the teacher. B.F. Skinner, 1971.
Okay, don't screw this up this time. Just go to the audio log. There we go.
In any case, our 3-days-old infant cannot be very confident of any interpretation it puts on a universe which it only discovered a minute or two ago. We have said it has 70 years of life before it, but in truth, its expectation of life would seem to be nearer to 70,000 years. Maybe puzzled, distressed, and often irritated at the apparent meaninglessness and incomprehensibility of the world to which it has suddenly wakened up. But it is still very young. Might travel half the world over before finding another baby as young and inexperienced as itself. It has before it time enough and to spare in which it may understand everything. Sooner or later, the pieces of the puzzle must begin to fit together. Although, it may reasonably be doubted whether the whole picture can ever be comprehensible to one small and apparently quite insignificant part of the picture. James Jeans, 1928.
God bade me behold the sea, and I saw the ships sinking and the planks floating. Then the planks too were submerged.
It's time. Yes.
And God said to me,
time for the sandwich.
Those who voyage are not saved. And he said to me, those who, instead of voyaging, cast themselves into the sea, take a risk. And he said to me, those who voyage and take no risk shall perish. And he said to me, in taking the risk, there is a part of salvation. And the wave came and lifted those beneath it and overran.
Sad sandwich. Oh, it's a very happy audio.
The surface of the sea is a gleam that cannot be reached.
Wait, what?
And the bottom is a darkness impenetrable. And between the two are great fishes, which are to be feared. Nefari, circa 970.
Don't understand.
What?
I'm going to the store. Do you want to sit
You've been standing there for like an hour.
I didn't want to interrupt.
That sounds gross.
I don't like sandwiches.
I mean, I guess it depends what you put in it, but that still sounds gross.
Why would you think I want a sandwich?
Sorry.
No, I need some sleep.
It's okay. We're all working hard.
I just want to read it right. We're going to be hearing this a lot of times. Every little thing matters because it gets so multiplied.
It's good. It's already good.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, we've kind of picked high goalposts. Every little bit matters.
Bored. Stand around like an idiot.
Can you get me a coffee?
I should really see if there's a better way to route this, because I've got a bunch of extra time. I just care about the order of the audio logs.
Nobody pays to be seen. we only leave some traces of
around
us
8.
for the Intrepid to
Stand around 70.
What do you mean? Any visitor to that island is...
Somehow stand around more times the number of audio logs in the game.
They go around.
Oh yeah, no, sure, but I mean, showing what's happening behind the scenes.
Why am I
a little
losing
bit, to
time?
ensure we keep
Oh, because my goal is bad. That makes
authenticity.
sense.
Because if we get too concerned with saying a bunch of wise things in the least personally revealing way, then we're basically putting up a front, in danger of it becoming a false front. It's a slippery slope, and you know how easily we could slide into pomposity.
What?
Nobody wants that, but
Oh,
will we
I have
notice
the
if it
pillar in the
happened?
wrong place.
Or are we too close to the project? Look,
I don't care. The
just
generated
if we
splits will be more
include
correct.
some of our interactions show that we aren't.
But I need to take a
transcendent,
stronger look at
perfect beings
UTM.
that
I guess?
we
I
get
don't
stuck
know.
sometimes.
I don't
We
really.
get into
It's just, it
arguments,
looks like there's a way that I
get
can make
depressed.
challenge less
Then
stressful.
at least it's not
But like, I should be getting a
false
sub
front.
3 challenge. That's not
It's
hard
not
to
hard.
require. If someone else wants to run this, they can find a way to make it
Good.
less critical.
But you can find human drama anywhere. I mean, we're drowning in it from day to day. We're supposed to be building a quiet environment away from drama, not celebrating it. Look, these are objects of contemplation. These are about focus and clarity.
We agreed.
at the outset.
Yeah, I know, and I don't want to change any of that. Just a little added twist, you know, tucked away deep. It doesn't have to be drama. It's just reality.
Reality. So what? We should record a meeting and stick it in?
Maybe.
Good way to use your points.
We already
Exactly.
have some good stuff.
That way you
Oh,
don't
like that
have to
little
actually
encounter the
pay
other
Twitch
week where
money.
you offered to buy a girl a sandwich.
I promise you, Jeff Bezos does not need any more money.
Her mic was running, so it's in the archive. Look, it's fine.
That's why I use FFC
In
for almost
context,
everything I
it's
can.
perfect. Because we're not lecturing from on high. These recordings are part of an endeavor built by human beings. And they aspire to
Oh, you
truth
turned
with
it
a
black and
capital
white?
T, but
Nice.
we also have to remember that they cannot actually get there. We should be clear to the Intrepid that we know this. I think
Everything's
it'll
made
make it
up.
better.
Especially these fake
Okay.
numbers that Twitch
Sure.
keeps putting in my chat.
We'll at least see how it feels. I mean, on that island, we are going to be in very susceptible states. So, be careful with it.
Okay.
Seems like it to be the pioneer of being mildly embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, Chi.
And also, should probably let you know, I'm recording this conversation right now.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm serious.
Oh. What? It
This is
will make
30
it better, trust me.
seconds. Okay, I need to reroute UTM. This is just gonna bother me. Oh, that was the end of the log.
I cannot understand why we idle discussing religion. If we are honest, and scientists
Pausing
have
the
to,
music because
we
there's going
must
to be more
admit
music
that
now.
Religion is a jumble of false assertions with no basis in reality. The very idea of God is a product of the human imagination. It is quite understandable why primitive people, who were so much more exposed to the overpowering forces of nature than we are today, should have personified these forces in fear and trembling.
That works, but I can't
But
solve.
nowadays, when we understand so many natural processes, we have no need for such solutions. I can't, for the life of me, see how the postulate of an almighty God helps us in any way. What I do see is that this assumption leads to such unproductive questions as to why God allows so much misery and injustice, the exploitation of the poor by the rich, and all the other horrors he might have prevented.
What the hell is this
religion
puzzle,
still being
dude?
taught, it is by no means because its ideas still convince us, but simply
Help.
because some of us want to keep the lower classes quiet. Quiet people are much easier to govern than clamorous.
Thank you.
They are also much easier to exploit. Religion is a kind of opium that allows a nation to lull itself into wishful dreams and so forget the injustices that are being perpetrated.
I thought I
against
had it, and then I very did not.
Paul Dirac, 1927, as related by Werner Heisenberg. So, you see what I'm saying?
Maybe.
Yep. And this one doesn't fit either.
How would you characterize the way in which it does that?
Well, it's about arguing, and it's about
this challenge is like set out to make me lose time.
It's not even hiding. It's not about ultimate truth. Not really. It's mostly about what some stupid people are doing that is wrong.
What the
compared to
hell,
what I'm
dude?
doing that is right.
But Paul Dirac was definitely a truth seeker in the domain of physics at least.
Yeah, but I don't feel that attitude in this piece at all.
This is one of the worst challenges I have seen in a long time.
It can't be fundamental.
It was middle. Okay, that's what I thought.
But, you know, where he starts to think about natural processes, he starts
Please
to
don't bully me, Triangle Senpai.
Interesting. There's something that could stand on its own. That it isn't just rejection and opposition.
No, it looked good. No, it's not fair.
This isn't the Atheist Manifesto we need. I'll keep looking.
Okay. That's close.
You know, at one point, Dirac also wrote this. One could perhaps describe the situation by saying that God is a mathematician of a very high order, and he used very advanced mathematics for constructing the universe. I think he meant God in an Einstein kind of way.
Same guy.
Same guy.
I say dumb things when I get frustrated.
And people are strange. Scientists are stranger.
Well, that's end of audio log, so you know, I'm not losing time or anything. Whoa, it got loud. So yeah, time loss. Okay, so I definitely want to find a way to make this less painful.
It's just the new teapot beeping. It boils fast, but that beep bothers me. Moving on?
So, next I want to raise this problem, which is that I think we don't have enough smart representation from materialist atheists, physicalists, anything in that neighborhood of ideas. And I've been trying to do something about that, but it's hard. The problem is that most coherent atheist screeds are focused on defeating some specific idea of God, or are angry about the historical activities of organized religions, rather than, say, from first principles, making a good case for the impossibility of any concept of God, which would be more like what we're after.
I'm having the same problem. So many justifications of atheism devolve into assertions of the implausibility of Bible stories. Someone like Bertrand Russell, a very advanced thinker, but his commentary on religion all seems
Desert
to be
Blood
like
Room as being
why
Black
I am
Line?
not a
No,
Christian.
Black Line is specifically
Very
about
limited in scope.
a set of
It
EPs
is
that
way
are
too small compared to the vision of God and the pieces we're juxtaposing.
that are in.
Can you
that are
repeat
in
that
town.
last part? You kind of just dropped out a little bit.
Oh, just that it's a very provincial idea of God that's
East
usually
way.
advanced in those arguments. Sometimes even a straw man God. And it doesn't have much in common with the God visualized by Cusa or Spinoza or the great Sufis or even Einstein. Whoever. So it just doesn't play on the same field.
When people are explicitly pushing materialism, they're usually philosophers or writers.
You can definitely summon
not
those early.
physicists. Not people who actually do the frontline work of understanding the physical world. With the heavy hitters in physics, it's very hard. It's hard to find good statements that aren't just arguing against straw. And it's strange because in the modern age, a reasonable portion of working physicists are atheists. Not all by any means, but a reasonable portion.
Full red.
But it's hard to get strong and articulate statements from that sector.
Yeah. I mean, the closest you get is somebody like Feynman.
Yeah.
Where science gives
Naming
us a
is
great
hard.
degree of
If you
certainty
have better
about
naming
certain
suggestions,
things.
we can
But
always take them.
Outside those, it's not a good idea to tell ourselves
Most
nice
things
stories,
just have a
to
name because that was the best we
speculate.
could come
It's
up
just
with.
best to realize
And that
we
was
don't
3
know
people
yet
who
about
played the
bigger
game a
questions,
lot.
etc.
So,
But
if you can think of nice, distinct names, I am all ears.
Paul Dirac was at least a staunch atheist at one point in his life, but I don't think his direct statements are
Dirac was far from a materialist. He believed the universe is made out of math. That's a simplification, of course. He even mentioned God a few times in an Einstein kind of way.
Wow.
This is all so crazy because among scientifically educated people, it's the cultural default, right? If you're a scientist or a computer programmer kind of person, atheist materialism is supposed to be
I don't
the
think that's a
basic
debate. I think we
belief.
solved it.
If you're not a materialist, you're stupid. But if we can't find anyone who makes a good case for it, how does that happen?
Well, it's easy to be convinced of the absurdity of stories in Christianity, Judaism, whatever. So, if that's your picture of spiritual beliefs, you have an aversion to digging too hard into your own.
Oh, like all. I mean, if you want to make a category that's all blah, again, do it. I don't care.
Bible stories,
as long as you do a run, write a rules description, then it'll go on Cadex. That's the only requirement. I just want to make sure that there aren't things on Cadex that have arbitrary rule sets. Like, they have to be my category, and I'm the only one who can run it. We have one of those in Talos, and it's dumb. It's like, you have to follow exactly this rule set. Like,
in addition to goofy Bible stories, did I forget to mention ghost stories, astrologers, spoonbenders, and all kinds of frauds?
It's a ton of noise. It makes it almost impossible for an outsider looking in to see high-quality thought in the world of spirituality. If I can even generalize spirituality to one thing. So it's easy, if you're already leaning toward materialism, to see these flaky spiritual people, extrapolate that to all spiritual people, and say all that stuff is garbage.
That's how it worked for me.
Well, I'll just delete the clip, so, you know.
But despite all this, there's a large contingent of present-day real scientists who believe in some form of atheist materialism.
Clips are not an arbitrary playground. They are something I have direct control over.
Ensure we respect that.
It's
I remember that. Sorry.
No, you go.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Carl Sagan has a good piece in Demon Haunted World, where he talks about science as a profound source of spirituality, but he doesn't mean mystical spirituality. He means just pure dedication to truth and the development of a wise perspective on our place in the world. It's nice, and it's a picture of atheism that isn't hostile.
121? No, it's 113.
Yeah, I read that, and
right.
what you're talking about is a beautiful
No,
piece,
123.
and I tried to get it, but
yeah, I'm
people
still
want
too early
much
for
money.
that. Again,
Can't
maybe
we
on the way
just pay
back
more?
down the mountain.
No.
Yeah, Agent
It would
Armor,
trigger a bunch of
whatever.
most favored nation
There's a
clauses.
dumb category that someone
Pay
did. They put on
everyone a lot
Cadex,
more
and then
and
someone else
we
tried
go
to run
broke.
it, and we had to tell the other person
Sagan
there
for
are
us.
no rules. And it was like, this is pointless.
It is a shame, since he was such a great thinker,
Okay, I'm losing time.
and eloquent, too.
Wah, wah, wah.
Up there, you go around every hour and a half. Time after time after time. You wake up usually in the mornings.
Finish
and
swamp tutorial.
Just the way
Then
the track of your orbits go, you wake up over the Mideast,
we're gonna go through
over
Keep,
North Africa.
and then we're gonna go to
As you eat
Quarry.
breakfast,
And I cut some of the Bodhi
look out
peas
the
in the
window
hopes
as
that it'll
you're
give me enough
going
time to finish
past,
Treehouse,
and
but we'll
there's
see.
the Mediterranean area, and Greece, and Rome, and North Africa, and the Sinai, the whole area.
Oh, there.
And you
I mean, you could just download the VOD
that
if you
in
really
one
wanted
glance, that what
Like,
you're
I
seeing
don't have
is
control
what was
over
the
what I've
whole
uploaded to the
history of a
internet.
man for
I'd have to go delete
years,
the VOD, and I don't
the
want to do that
cradle
because there's only
of
6
civilization.
tutorial. There's 8 in
And
the
you
second
go
half.
around down across North Africa
No, there's 14
and
total.
out over the Indian Ocean, and look up at that great subcontinent of India, pointed down toward you.
I
as
guess
you
I
go
could do
past
some
it.
of this on
And
the
Ceylon off to the side, Burma, Southeast
on
Asia,
the other
out over the
audio log.
Philippines,
There's a chance.
and up across that monstrous Pacific Ocean.
100% take an hour and a half.
Vast
No,
body of
100% takes
water.
2.5 hours.
You've never realized how big that is
99.8
before.
takes an hour and a half.
And you finally come up across the coast of California and look for those friendly things. Los Angeles and Phoenix
100% takes
and
like
on across El
215.
Paso.
Though I think we might
And
be
there's
pushing for a
Houston.
2OX.
There's home. And you look, and sure enough,
It's not
there's
super
the
clear.
Astrodome. And you identify
It's
with
going to
that,
be
you
interesting
know?
to see.
It's an attachment. And down across New Orleans, and then looking down to the south, and there's the whole peninsula of Florida.
Dude, I did it again.
And all the hundreds of hours you spent flying
Talos
across that
has some
route,
very dumb
down in the atmosphere. All that is
things that you can
fabricated.
do to it,
And you
including
go
yeah,
out
one
across
purple
the
barrier,
Atlantic
which
Ocean
is
and back
it's
across
not a
it.
real category. There's a trick in
And you do
Talos
it
called a
again
barrierless
and
cube
again.
jump, where as long as you have a cube, a hexahedron,
And that identity
you can
that you identify with Houston,
fly
and then you
into the
identify
air,
with Los Angeles,
just sort of
and
arbitrarily.
Phoenix and New Orleans and everything. And the next thing you recognize in yourself is you're identifying with North Africa.
And that gives you so much
look
control. Oh,
forward
and
to
you take
that.
the cube with you, so you can do it
anticipate
again.
And there it is. That
So
whole
there's a bunch
process
of really dumb
begins to
things you can
shift
do in Talos.
of what it is you identify with. When you go around it in an hour and a half, you begin to recognize that your identity is with that whole thing. And that makes a change. You look down there, and you can't imagine how many borders and boundaries you crossed again and again and again. And you don't even see them. At that wake-up scene, the Mid-East, you know there are hundreds of people killing each other over some imaginary line that you can't see. From where you see it, the thing is a whole. And it's so beautiful.
Talos, these days in Talos,
And
we
you
have enough
wish you could
FPS that you
take
can do
one from
basically
each side in
anything.
hand and say, look at it from this perspective. Look at that. What's important?
There's a lot
And
of
so a little
pretty
later
dumb
on, your friend,
categories
again,
now
with
that are
same
just like,
neighbors,
well,
another asteroid.
break everything like
the
this.
person next to you goes out to
It's just not that interesting anymore.
And now he looks back and sees.
I think if I go back to
Now
Talos,
it's
it'll be all
you
sigils.
can see the beautiful details.
Like, I think I probably would do
He
at least
sees
one
the
run of
Earth
New Any
as a
Percent, just to have a time on the
small thing out there.
leaderboard.
And now
It's not
that
as
contrast
miserably
between
outclassed
that
as my
bright
current one
blue
is.
and white Christmas tree ornament and that black sky, that infinite universe, really comes through. The size of it, the significance of it, it becomes
I'm
both
not
things.
Sure.
It becomes so small
this walking
and
route
so
is faster.
fragile, and such a
I should
precious
time this
little
too.
spot in that
Do
universe
brown path? I did.
that you can block it out with your thumb.
Dirt path, yeah.
And you realize that on that small spot, that little
Like, I'm trying to
blue
get
and
to
white
Quarry
thing
Boat.
is everything
No, I'm not.
that
I have to get
means
to the top of
anything to
Quarry.
you.
I'm just
All of
thinking that going
history
through
and
Shadow's
music and
keep
poetry
shortcut
and
into Shadow's
art
shortcut
and
could be
war
faster
and
here.
death and
I
birth
really
and
doubt
love, tears, joy,
I'm up for timing it.
games.
it. Given that
all
we
of
already
it
have everything
is
solved.
on that little spot out there that you can cover with your thumb. And you realize that that perspective,
Nice.
that you've changed, that there's something new there.
It's just outright
That
in the
relationship is no
way.
longer what it was. And then you look back on the time when you were outside on that EVA and those few moments that you had the time because the camera malfunctioned, that you had the time to think about what was happening. And you recall staring out there at the spectacle that went before your eyes. Because now, you're
feel
no
like
longer
I'm
inside
so
something with a
far
window
out of
looking out at
time.
a picture.
Like,
But now you're out there, and what you've got around your head is a goldfish bowl.
I'm like
There
a
are
minute
no
into this
limits
audio
here.
log, or like 3 or 4 minutes into
There
this
are
audio
no
log, and I still have to
frames. There are
ride
no
the boat all the way to
boundaries.
Treehouse.
You're really out there.
This just seems
Over
crazy.
it, floating, going 25,000 miles per hour, ripping
see,
through
but, like-
space, a vacuum, and there's not a sound. There's a silence, the depth of which you
Oh, I didn't do
never
red
experienced
flowers.
before.
Okay. That's
And
why
that
this looks
silence
off.
contrasts so markedly with the scenery and the speed with which you know you're going. That contrast, the mix of those two things, really comes through. And you think about what you're experiencing and why. Do you deserve this?
So I could send the boat
This
here. That would
fantastic
save some time.
experience? Have you earned this?
And I was
in some
picturing I
way?
could also, if I
Are
don't
you
do that,
separated
but I
out
should
to
be
be
able to do
touched
that.
by God to have some special
will the boat be
experience
here by now?
that other men cannot have?
4 minutes?
You know the answer to that is no. There's nothing that you've done that deserves that earned that. It's not a special thing for you. You know very well at that moment, and it comes through to you so powerfully that you're the sensing element for man. You look down and see the surface of that globe that you've lived on all this time, and you know all those people down there.
So we're just not doing
They are
green.
like you. They are you.
In the
And
hopes that somehow
you
gives me enough
represent
time.
them when you are up there. A sensing element. That point out on the end. And that's a humbling feeling. It's a feeling that says you have a responsibility. It's not for yourself. The eye that doesn't see
But this saves like
does
a
not
minute.
do justice to the body.
May or may not be enough time.
That's why it's there. That's why you're out there. And somehow you recognize that you're a piece of this total life. You're out on that forefront and you have to bring that back somehow.
And that becomes a rather special responsibility. It tells you something about your relationship with this thing we call life.
I'm like very close to the end of
back,
this log, aren't I?
There's a difference in that world now. There's a difference in that relationship between you and that planet.
I see there's like another 2 minutes.
And all those other forms of life on that planet. Because you've had that kind of experience. It's a difference. And it's so precious.
We're very in this
And
log.
all through this, I've used the word you because it's not
impossible.
me. It's not Dave Scott. It's not Dick Gordon, Pete Conrad, John Glenn. It's you. It's us. It's we. It's life. It's had that experience. And it's not just my problem to integrate. It's not my challenge to integrate, my joy to integrate. It's yours. It's everybody's.
Like, that's time.
Russell Schweikart, 1975.
So I think the thing that's going to have to go is Keep. The extra trip up and down the Keep Tower. So now we solve this one to the right. Because I do want to finish Green Bridge. Like, I need to finish Green Bridge. That is the category definition. And I'll put in Keep 4 earlier. It's a shame. I was really hoping I can get 3 obelisks, but this just seems so ridiculous. Like, I just am so far out of time. You can tell 7 reds, 4 grays, 4 stars. The reds are probably going to be the most challenging part of that. The reds are pretty serious. The grays are actually not that bad. Like, the grays are... Well, I don't know which grays you have left. But a lot of the grays are just interesting puzzles. They're not necessarily, like, brutally hard. I can't. It's not like I can just stop doing one obelisk. Like... It's not like it's a one-for-one trade. Quarry would be the one that would be the easiest to do. But even so, I'm not spending that much extra time in Quarry. Right? And this is pretty close. I think if I drop Keep, this will be fine. Like, I'm not spending that much extra time in Quarry. The other thing is I really don't want to spend a huge amount of time rerouting all of this. Because that sounds like a pain. Right here. You would use the obelisk, the Jungle Beach audio log, and you could do a bunch of stuff in Jungle. And you'd have to somehow save the time out of Quarry. 3 stars aren't in any of the level signs. All the stars are in all of the level signs outside of the level, and none of the stars are in the level signs in the world. So there's a sign at every hub. I don't need to solve that. There's a sign at every hub, right, like when you enter the world, and that'll have the stars. But the signs around the world will never have it.
That the path before me was closed. The provisions exhausted.
And there might be some stars that are not in levels.
Take shelter in silent obscurity. But I find that thy will knows no end in me. And when words die out on the tongue, new melodies break forth from the heart. And where old tracks are lost, new country is revealed with its wonders.
And so there we go. It's a valid run.